the first question here is, at what point is a student considered a transfer rather than a high school student? It'd be helpful if the answer is in college credit terms, i.e. community college classes. Also, if a student has completed an AA during high school, can they still apply for high school undergraduate admissions? No, unfortunately, there are certain cutoffs in terms of what would categorize you as a transfer student versus as a freshman student. And it may vary from campus to campus. So typically it'll take more than, let's say, for example, like, I mean, if you already completed close to a year of community college classes while you're still in high school, that might categorize you as a transfer student. Also, if there's like an early college thing going on, so that's definitely something if they do an early college program at your high school where you can complete an AA, chances are you'll probably be categorized as a transfer student at that point. But it's best for you to contact each individual campus at that point because they'll be able to tell you more details about like what their cutoffs are for that. But for the most part, if let's say you're a regular high school student, you're not doing things on track for an AA, you're taking dual enrollment classes, you don't have to worry about that because even if you took like 4, 5, 6, 7 classes, you're probably still honestly going to be considered a freshman applicant at that point, okay? Next is for students who will be a senior this fall, in addition to doing research during the summer, do you have any other good suggestions to help a student get into Ivy League colleges? I mean, that's definitely, like obviously research would be good. If you can do more community service, possibly doing something in the nonprofit realm, that's definitely very highly looked upon. If you have competitive activities, you could use the summer to make you even more competitive for your last semester or so. It varies tremendously because, obviously each individual student's profile is different. But obviously, like research could be a good thing that you can use. But like I said earlier, not all fields actually do have research as something you could do for that field. Right. So if like you're an English major, you can't really do research per se. So for that, you would probably want to do things like, having, good showings for things like creative writing competitions or doing your own individual like project where you create a website based on a certain author, for instance, could be a good thing. It really depends on your major as well. Okay. Next, let's see, if you have 2 counselors helping with college apps or essays, should I let them do 1 or 2 same important schools? I'm not sure then what you mean by having 2 counselors, but in general, obviously, like, we do, if you have an HS2 counselor and you're working with someone else, obviously, like, we would like for you to default to the HS2 counselor's advice for that. So it makes sense because normally what we do is we do a package of we do a package of schools, right? So of course it would make sense for you to have like the advice of one main person who's advising you through the process, because if you get conflicting advice, that's often not good, okay? All right, next up is if I take a psychology course this summer at a local community college and receive weighted credits in my transcript and take AP psychology at school and take AP next school year, is there any conflicts? A college credit and AP credit both weighted in psychology. Yeah, that is kind of a little bit problematic because by the time you take AP psychology, it would be viewed as redundant. So I typically tell students, don't take a college class, community college or otherwise, that would duplicate the credits of a course you do plan to take in high school, because colleges would view that as you taking the same class. It would be similar to if you took AP, whatever, like AP chemistry, AP biology, and then you took an online high school class taking the same subject again, right? It would sort of diminish the significance of one of the other courses because they feel like, hey, you're just repeating the same material, okay? So in general, it's probably not a good idea for you to do that, okay? Next, if a student has done multiple research projects with papers published, is it better to list one project per activity or all projects as a single activity? With regards to the UC application, you'd probably want a slot for each independent research project just to kind of give it the attention it's due. There is also something called the additional information section toward the end of the application, where it's just a fairly big text box. You could put a short abstract or synopsis of each individual research project there if you think that it's significant enough. UC admissions readers will probably not look at links or click on links to external websites. So if you can do a short description there, even the 350 characters is not sufficient. You could use that extra slot or the space at the end of the application. Okay. Next is, if I finish drafting my UC applications this summer, is it good to submit my application on October 1st? Yeah, I mean, if you're all good and, people who are advising in the application say that everything's solid, sure. You don't want to do it prematurely, though, if you think you could have used that extra time to go ahead and work on it a little bit more. I mean, we do typically advise our students to go ahead and submit them typically early to mid-October as much as possible, because that also frees you up to be able to focus on your early applications for EA or ED a little bit more. Okay. Next, what community college courses could boost the student's GPA in UC applications? Well, typically, if you look at a catalog for any community college, it should list whether or not the course is UC or CSU transferable, right? So if it is typically a 3 or 4 unit class that is going to be very similar to a course you would take at a UC, more than likely it would, but it's better to check nonetheless. Typically, what you want to avoid are things that are like introduction to Excel or introduction to spreadsheets, which is like a 1 unit course or something like that. That's probably not going to transfer over, right? So definitely do your homework and make sure that you can definitely have a course that will transfer to the UCs. Now, the good thing, like I said, about those UCR courses that I mentioned, they are guaranteed to transfer because the UC Riverside has already confirmed that every UC will accept it. Okay. Next is we have packed activities. We have packed activities during the summer. Which one is a priority to do? SAT preparation or a 4 credit course? Or 4 college course? It depends largely on what the rest of your profile has. If your grades are great and your test scores aren't as strong yet, then of course SAT preparation would make sense. A 4 college course could be especially more important if, let's say, your GPA isn't necessarily stellar. Ideally, you should be able to do both. Those seem like pretty important priorities. Oftentimes what you could do is you could probably get a tutor instead of taking a class for SAT preparation, because then you'd have more flexibility with your schedule. Usually a 4 college course, it's not going to consume your entire school day. Typically, most college credit courses would probably range around like 8 to 12 hours in a week, right? So you could probably juggle like an SAT class. Like for HS2, for instance, we do have weekend only, like Saturday SAT classes. So I think that would be something that you can do, okay? All right, so last couple of questions here for the evening, since it's getting kind of late here. What kind of extracurriculars would you recommend for a pre-med who wants to go to a UC? Sure. So like hospital volunteering could probably look pretty good. Having science related activities dealing with research could be good as well. Having activities or clubs at your school that are distinctly pre-med, like future doctors club or something like that would look really solid for a lot of UCs. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot that you could do just to show that you have a passion for or interested in like the pre-health fields. Okay. And then last question for this evening is, I was thinking of doing a passion project to enhance my knowledge in a certain subject, but I was wondering whether numbers matter if it's something that is released publicly, since I don't know if colleges look at the numbers. Not sure what you mean by numbers, but typically speaking, if you have ways to evidence your passion project by like a website, for instance, that would be good. For the UCs, obviously, it's a little harder because they probably won't click on those links. But sure, some way to quantify or for them to understand like the scope or the impact of your passion project would probably be good if you have those things. Not all projects, though, are really cut out for that. So maybe using one of your essays, one of your 4 essays to spotlight what you did for that passion project would probably be really, really important. Okay. All right. So with that, we're actually a little over time. So if I didn't get to your question, please join us again next Friday, and I'll be happy to answer your question. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you for spending time to listen.